Hello again, everyone. It's This Week in Agribusiness meteorologist Greg Solier. We're back in for Max Armstrong. Welcome to Farm Progress, Dateline Drought. Our continuing coverage of the drought of 2012 is brought to you by Genuity Drought Guard Hybrids. Well, that cool, damp, almost November-ish feel of late to outdoor chores, livestock duties, and that same system up aloft, which has limited and even prevented field work, including fall harvest, expected to move on out over the course of the weekend, moving back in, south winds, moderating temperatures back to, and by early next week, slightly above seasonal expectations from the eastern and central Corn Belt back south and southwestward. So at least from a comfort standpoint, none too bad, and we'll make some progress firming things up in select areas, so there will be an opportunity over the next few days to resume harvest and certainly fall operations out there. Now, things may change and will likely do so over the course of the next week time frame into the northern and central plains, with indications of a couple of weather systems moving on through and at least some prospect for some degree of rainfall over some of the parched winter wheat fields and perhaps even advance northward into areas of the Dakotas and upper Midwest. Some of this precipitation over the next 5 to 7 days. No sign of any real cold coming into play for livestock managers, bin and barn operators. Signs that down the line as we approach the first few days of November, that might very well change, laying out cold across the northern and central plains, northern and central Rockies, Pacific Northwest, warmth in the southeast. Remember, jet stream winds tend to line up along this temperature differential, and that could bode well with some organized moisture continuing on a fairly regular basis for parts of the northern and central plains and Corn Belt as we advance in through the remainder of the fall season. But at least the feds are thinking along these terms over the next 90 days that moisture will be quite minimal. Matter of fact, a continuation, a persistence of this drought weather pattern over a wide area of the plains, the northern and western Corn Belt. Some improvement, they are saying, into areas of Minnesota. We agree with this, and most likely a significant improvement over much of the eastern belt and probably sections of the western belt too, but some drought issues obviously playing out west of the Missouri, southwestern states. This is an indicator of this somewhat elusive El Nino pattern trying to come into play, a pickup on moisture into areas of California and the southeastern states too. Now, down the line now as we take a look at moisture approaching the end part of the month of October, plays out like this. Good news, Northern California, Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies, into the northern and central Corn Belt, a pickup on moisture. Ultimately, we'll see this moisture field increase over areas of the central and southern plains later this fall and into the winter season. And there's that cold air laying out across much of the heartland in the waning days of October. That's a check on weather. We'll hope to see you this weekend on This Week in Agribusiness. Now into Bryce Knorr and a look at markets.
There were plenty of reasons for the grain market to struggle today, but it was hard to ignore the possibility that futures' lack of follow-through on Friday had something to do with an event 25 years ago. Today is the anniversary, of course, of Black Monday back in 1987, when the stock market suffered its biggest one-day meltdown ever, losing more than 22%. The fact that Wall Street was seeing heavy losses today only reinforced that attitude. Stocks had reasons to sell off too, notably a string of poor earnings reports. But the negative tone likely contributed to a down day in soybeans. Soybeans were seeing profit-taking already from Thursday's big rally overnight, before the market briefly turned around on news this morning that Ukraine is banning wheat exports. More on that in a second. Selling in soybeans resumed after the pit opened in Chicago, given a push by a big 2013 acreage estimate from consulting group Informa. The weak tone from the outside market kicked in then, sending prices close to session lows by the close. November futures finished down 11 1/4 at 15.34 1/4. The export ban on wheat was anticipated, but still helped that market to double-digit gains for a while. The market was also given a boost by USDA's announcement of the sale of 8.5 million bushels of U.S. originations to unknown destination, which played into the storyline that U.S. sales potential could be increasing. Chicago December futures rallied up to the resistance line off September and October highs, taking a stab at the 50-day moving average before running out of steam. Chicago finished well off its highs, ending up 4 at 872.5. Kansas City finished up 3 1/4 at 9.08. Minneapolis ended a penny and a half lower at 9.42 1/2. Corn followed wheat higher, but also gave back its gains by the close. This week's turnaround buoyed hopes at a harvest low as in, and strong basis suggested farmers have locked their bins tight for the time being. But lack of export news continues to hamstring the market, which may mark time until USDA's next production estimate on November 9th. December corn closed up 3/4 at 7.61 1/2. Keep up with the drought situation across the country by visiting www.datelinedrought.com.